story number 1, gutter check. I was deep into a logo revision when I noticed the van pull up outside. White, unmarked, the kind of vehicle that could belong to anyone. A man in his 50s, maybe, with a gray work shirt and khaki pants, climbed out and opened the rear doors. He didn't knock, didn't ring the bell, just started unloading a ladder with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times. My first thought was that my landlord had scheduled something again without telling me. It wouldn't be the first time. He managed 4 or 5 properties in the area and had a habit of arranging maintenance on his own schedule, assuming tenants would just work around it. I'd complained twice already about surprise visits. The irritation was familiar enough that I didn't even get up from my desk. Just listen to him work. The ladder scraped against the siding below my bedroom window. A long, metallic drag. Then another. He was positioning it, adjusting the angle. I could picture him doing it. The kind of practiced movement that doesn't require thought. I turned back to my monitor, trying to focus on the curves of a serif font, but the sound kept pulling at my attention. It was loud enough to be intrusive, but not loud enough to be an emergency. Just background noise that didn't belong. The scraping stopped. I heard the creak of weight on the ladder rungs, slow and steady. He was climbing. I figured he was checking the gutters, maybe clearing them out. Spring maintenance. Standard stuff. But something in the rhythm of his movement felt deliberate. Not rushed. Not efficient. Like he was taking his time with each step. Then I heard footsteps on the roof. They moved across the shingles directly above my office, slow and measured. I glanced up at the ceiling as if I could see through it. The footsteps continued, crossing from one side of the roof to the other. He should have been working on the gutters. That's what the ladder was for. But he was walking the roof like he was surveying something. I looked toward my office window. He was standing on the second floor roof, staring directly inside at me. His body was angled toward the glass, and he held a clipboard against his chest. He wasn't checking anything, wasn't measuring or inspecting. He was just looking, watching me look at him. I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. We held eye contact for maybe 3 seconds. His expression didn't change. He didn't look away or pretend he'd been doing something else. He just stood there, clipboard in hand, staring into my office like he was waiting for something, like he was confirming something. I moved to the window and locked it. The sound of the lock was small and final. He didn't react. I kept my eyes on him as I backed out of the office and into the hallway. The footsteps started again, moving, following the sound of my movement through the house. I went downstairs and locked the front door, then the back door, then the sliding glass door in the kitchen. My hands were steady, but my breathing had changed. I was trying to rationalize it. Maybe he was checking the roof structure. Maybe he needed to inspect the second floor. Maybe there was a reason. But the way he'd been standing there, the way he'd been watching, that wasn't normal maintenance behavior. I went back upstairs and locked my bedroom window, then the bathroom, then the guest room. As I locked each window, I could hear him moving across different sections of the roof, not randomly, deliberately. He seemed to know where I was inside the house. When I was in the bedroom, he walked that side. When I moved to the bathroom, the footsteps shifted. When I went back to my office, I heard him above me again. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of him through the glass. He was still standing in the same position, clipboard held the same way, staring at the window. The photo was clear enough to see his face blank, waiting, I got the license plate of the van from my bedroom window. Then I called my landlord. He picked up on the third ring, and I could hear the confusion in his voice before I even finished explaining. No, he hadn't scheduled anything. No maintenance work. Not for my property. Not that week. He sounded genuinely puzzled, like I was reporting something impossible. I stayed on the phone with him while I watched the man on the roof. The moment I said the words, "No work scheduled," something shifted in the man's posture. It was subtle, but it was there, a tightening. An acknowledgement. He climbed down the ladder. I watched him from the window as he folded it up with the same methodical movements he'd used to unfold it. He didn't hurry. He didn't seem panicked or worried. He just packed the ladder back into the van, climbed into the driver's seat, and drove away. The whole thing took maybe 4 minutes. I was still on the phone with my landlord. He called me back an hour later. His voice was different this time. Tighter. He'd contacted his other tenants, the ones in his other properties. 3 of them reported seeing an identical white van parked outside their homes that same week. Early morning, overcast day. Times when people were likely to be home working. One tenant thought she'd seen someone on her roof. Another found footprints on her siding that didn't match any scheduled maintenance. The landlord said he'd called the police. They took the information, but didn't sound particularly concerned. Without evidence of a break-in or a direct threat, there wasn't much they could do. The van was gone. The man was gone. The footprints would fade. I still have the photos on my phone. The man's face is clear enough that I could probably identify him if I saw him again. The license plate is legible. But the van hasn't come back. Not to my house. Not to the other properties, as far as I know. Some mornings, when it's overcast and I'm working at my desk, I find myself listening for the sound of a ladder being dragged across siding. I lock my windows before I even sit down. I keep my phone within reach. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he was alone or if there were others. I just know that he stood on my roof and watched me through the glass, and when I took away the pretense of legitimacy, he left. But he knew exactly when to leave. He knew the moment I'd made that call. And that's the part that doesn't sit right. That's the part that makes me check my locks twice before bed. Story number 2, inspection route. I pulled into the gravel lot at 4:15 in the afternoon. The sky was already the color of wet concrete, and the wind was picking up from the west. The office complex was maybe 60% framed out. Steel beams, exposed concrete, plastic sheeting where windows would eventually be. I'd inspected this site 3 times already. It was routine. I grabbed my clipboard and hard hat from the truck bed. The parking area was empty except for a few vehicles parked near the main entrance. I didn't see Marcus, the foreman. He was usually waiting for me. I walked toward the entrance. The wind was stronger up close, and it whistled through the gaps in the plastic sheeting. The sound was high and thin, almost like something was calling out. A man appeared from inside the building. He was wearing a hard hat, but it didn't match the site standard. It was older, scuffed. He was maybe mid-50s, heavyset, with a clipboard of his own. "You the inspector?" he asked. "Yeah, where's Marcus? Family emergency." He had to leave around noon. I'm covering the walkthrough for him. I didn't recognize this guy. I'd been coming here for months. But I didn't want to make a thing of it. Foremen rotate people. "It happens. All right," I said. "Let's start with the second floor." We went inside. The air tasted like metal and dust. My throat felt dry immediately. I started documenting things. missing guardrails on the temporary stairs, electrical cords running across the floor without protection, a gap in the flooring on the south side that was wider than code allowed. Standard stuff. The other guy followed me, clipboard in hand, not really looking at anything. We were on the third floor when a second man appeared. He was younger, maybe early 40s, also in a mismatched hard hat. He came up the stairs without any equipment, no clipboard, nothing. "This is the inspector," the first guy said. "Yeah, I see," the second guy said. He was looking at me in a way that made my chest feel tight. "What's your name?" "Tom Hendricks. I'm with the State Safety Board." "Right. So you come here pretty regular." "Every 2 weeks, usually." "What other sites do you inspect?" I didn't like the question. It was too direct, and there was no reason he should need to know that. But I answered anyway. "Several in the region." "Why? Just curious," he said. "You work alone usually." That's when I felt it. That specific feeling you get when something is wrong. Not wrong in a way you can point to, but wrong in the way your body knows before your mind catches up. "Usually," I said. I moved toward the stairwell. Both men shifted slightly. Not much. Just enough that they were both between me and the stairs now. "You must visit some pretty remote sites," the second guy said. "Some," I said. My mouth was dry. The metallic taste of the dust was stronger now. "I need to finish the walkthrough." "We're not done talking," the first guy said. I looked at him. He wasn't smiling, neither was the second guy. "What's this about?" I asked. "Just want to know your schedule," the first guy said. "Which days you're usually alone? Which sites are more isolated?" I didn't answer. I moved toward the stairs again, and they moved with me, staying in the way. "We need your office address too," the second guy said. "For documentation?" "I'm not giving you that." "Why not?" I didn't waste time answering. I pulled my radio from my belt and pressed the button. "Dispatch, this is Hendricks. I need immediate pickup at the Riverside complex. I'm citing a safety concern and I'm leaving the site now." The radio crackled. My office was 5 miles away. "Copy that, Tom." "Dispatch is sending Marcus. ETA 8 minutes." I pushed past them. The first guy grabbed my arm, but I jerked away and moved toward the stairs. I went down fast, not running, but moving with purpose. My heart was hammering. The wind was louder now, and I could hear them behind me, but I didn't look back. I made it to the ground floor and walked straight out toward the street. My truck was visible from the entrance. I stood near it, in the open, where anyone driving by could see me. I kept my eyes on the building entrance. The 2 men didn't come out. I waited there for 7 minutes, watching the door. The wind kept gusting, and the plastic sheeting flapped against the frame. No one came out. Marcus pulled up in his truck at 4:30 too. He was confused when I got in. "What's going on?" Dispatch said safety concern. There were 2 men on site. I don't know who they were. They weren't here for the inspection. They were asking about my schedule, which sites I visit when I work alone. They blocked the stairwell when I tried to leave. Marcus's face changed. What did they look like? I described them. "I don't know those guys," he said. "And I didn't leave early. I've been here all day." I felt something cold move down my spine. "What do you mean you've been here all day?" "I've been here since 7 this morning. I never left. And nobody told me you were coming today." We drove back to the office in silence. I called the police from there and filed a report. They sent someone out to the site, but the men were gone. There was no sign of them. The police looked around, took some notes, said they'd increase patrols in the area. The next morning, Marcus called me. "I checked with the owner," he said. Nobody matching those descriptions has site access. Not contractors, not subs, nobody. And there's no record of anyone else being authorized to be on that site yesterday. I didn't go back to that location for 3 weeks. When I did, Marcus was waiting for me at the entrance, and he stayed with me the entire time. I still don't know who those men were or what they wanted. I've thought about it a lot. I think about it every time I pull into a site alone now, especially as it gets dark. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't had that radio, or if I'd been somewhere more remote, somewhere without traffic passing by. I still do this job. I still inspect sites, but I'm more careful now. I'm always aware of who's around me, and I always know where the exits are. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, watching the sites, waiting for the right inspector to come along at the right time. Story number 3, shoulder fog. I left the motel at 6 in the morning. The fog was already so thick that my headlights just created a white wall 2 car lengths ahead, and I could barely see the edge of the parking lot. I sat in my car for a minute, waiting for the defroster to do something useful, and checked my route on my phone. Wednesday pharmaceutical calls. Same territory I'd been covering for 3 years. Elkins, Helvetia, Pickens. Small clinics, family practices, nursing homes. Nothing unusual. The road out of town was empty. I passed maybe 2 other cars in the first 20 minutes, their taillights disappearing into the white like they were being swallowed. I knew these roads well enough that the fog didn't really bother me. You learn to trust the yellow lines. The dark SUV appeared in my rearview mirror on the first winding stretch near Elkins. I noticed it because it was the only other vehicle I'd seen in a while. Dark gray or black, hard to tell in the fog. It stayed 3 car lengths back through every turn. I remember thinking it was good driving for conditions like this. Respectful distance. I didn't think much about it. 20 minutes later, the road split. I took the left fork toward Helvetia, and the SUV didn't follow. I watched it disappear behind me and forgot about it almost immediately. An hour passed. I'd stopped at a clinic, left samples, talked to a nurse about quarterly orders. Normal morning. I was on a different remote road by then, heading toward Helvetia when I saw the SUV again in my rearview. Same dark color, same distance back, same steady speed. I told myself it was coincidence. Sales reps cover the same territory. We probably worked for competing companies. Maybe he was a new rep I hadn't seen before. The fog made everything feel smaller, like the world had shrunk to just the 2 of us on this road. But that was just the fog. He matched my speed perfectly through every turn. Not aggressive, just there. I found myself watching him more than the road, which was stupid. I forced myself to focus on the white ahead of me. I pulled into a scenic overlook about 40 minutes later. I told myself I needed to check my GPS, but really I just needed to breathe for a second. The overlook was empty. I could see maybe 10 feet in any direction before the fog took over. I sat in my car with the engine running and looked at my phone. The SUV pulled in 30 seconds later. It parked 4 spaces down from me. The engine stayed running. I could see the exhaust mixing with the fog. The driver didn't get out, didn't move, just sat there with the engine idling. I waited maybe 30 seconds, watching him in my mirror. He didn't do anything, didn't look at me, just sat in the car. I left. I drove faster than I should have through the fog, taking the curves tighter than was safe. I kept checking my mirror. The SUV didn't follow. I told myself I was being paranoid. He probably just needed a break too. Coincidence. Same territory, same overlooks. I drove for 40 minutes. My hands were tied on the wheel. I kept telling myself to relax, that I was being ridiculous, that there was a perfectly normal explanation for all of this. The SUV appeared again on a third isolated stretch, and this time I knew it wasn't coincidence. It was behind me for maybe 2 minutes before it pulled into the opposing lane and came up alongside. The fog was thinner here, just enough that I could see the vehicle clearly. Dark gray SUV, tinted windows, and the driver was wearing a surgical mask. He was gesturing at me, firmly, not angry, just firm, pointing down, motioning for me to pull over. I didn't think. I just accelerated. The fog swallowed everything. My headlights created a white void ahead of me, and I was driving blind into it at 60 miles per hour. I could hear the engine screaming. I took a curve and felt the back end slide, and I corrected without thinking. And then there was another curve, and another, and I couldn't see anything but white and the yellow line that kept disappearing. The SUV was still behind me. I could see his headlights in my mirror, steady and patient, like he wasn't even trying. I don't know how long I drove like that. It felt like forever. My vision had narrowed down to just the road ahead and the mirror. Everything else had disappeared. Then I saw lights, red and white lights cutting through the fog. A gas station. The sign said Pickens Market. I pulled in fast and parked right in front of the entrance. I sat there for a second, breathing hard, and watched the SUV slow down at the edge of the parking lot. It idled there at the far edge, maybe 50 feet away, just visible in the fog. I got out of my car and walked into the station. The attendant was a kid, maybe 20, behind the counter. I told him I needed him to call the police. He asked me why. I said there was someone outside who was following me, and I needed the police to come now. He called. I stayed inside, pretending to look at the coffee station, but really I was watching the parking lot. The SUV was still there, idling at the edge of the lot. I could see the exhaust rising up into the fog. The police arrived 12 minutes later. 2 officers in a cruiser. They pulled in and drove straight toward the SUV, and the SUV's headlights came on, and it just drove away, disappearing into the fog before the officers could even turn around. They took my statement, asked me to describe the vehicle, the driver, what he'd done. I told them everything. They said they'd file a report, that they'd keep an eye out, that I should call if I saw the vehicle again. I was standing there, still shaking, when the attendant came over. He said, "You know, that same SUV was parked out there idling when I came in this morning, just sitting at the edge of the lot in the fog. I thought maybe someone was sleeping in it or something. But it was there for like 20 minutes before you showed up." I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He said, "It wasn't following you here. It was already here, waiting." I left the station and drove back to my motel. I called my supervisor and told her I was sick and wouldn't be making the rest of my calls. She asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. I haven't driven that route again. I requested a transfer to a different territory. My supervisor asked why, and I said I just needed a change. She didn't push it. I still think about that SUV sometimes, about the surgical mask, about the fact that it was already waiting at that station, about what would have happened if I'd pulled over on that empty road when he asked. I don't have an answer to any of that. I just know that something about that morning felt wrong in a way I still can't quite explain. And I know I'm not going back to those